GMV episode 50. I'm Luke.
I'm Joe.
Let's get to it, man. 50 is a nice milestone for us. As I said before, I didn't even really think about that before we started, but episode 50.
Dude, you just said it. I got, like, tingles go up my back, actually. I was like, ooh, fucking 50.
Yeah.
Like, no shit.
Yeah, for everyone listening, sorry, we ain't got shit planned for our 50th, but it still feels special, so We'll roll with it. I've been saying for a while, like, 50's obviously a little milestone. I think we'll really hit our groove with this, because we both, you can already see it, and anyone who wants to check, go back and listen to the first couple episodes, or just a piece of them if you want, to now, how much better we've got, how much smoother the conversations flow, the whole thing. I think we'll really hit our stride when we hit triple digits, but that's just an estimate, you know, you never know exactly, because this is the kind of thing, and this is how you should approach everything, in my opinion. This is how I try to approach life, man. You should be trying to improve infinitely, you know what I mean, on everything, even if it's in small steps. So, like, you get damn good at podcasting. You get to, like, Rogan level podcasting, and he's, like, the gold standard at this point. He's still getting better.
Yeah.
He's not getting better as fast as he did at the beginning. Like, right now, what we're in those beginner gains. They're called, the common term for it is noob gains. I'm going to break that down for people who don't know. That's when you go into the gym, when you just start lifting, whether that's when you're 16 or 25. Most people like us is somewhere in your teenage range. You started when you were like 12. I started.
Yeah, I wasn't even a teenager
yet. But I started really getting into it when I was like 16. And then it just grew from there. But in the first, and this is actually science backing this up, and because there is individual variance, but usually from 6 months to about 2 years, depending on how good your training is, and your genetics, and your food, and all that, you'll get basically steroid level gains. Like, you might put on 20, 30 pounds of muscle in a year. Be aware, for anyone who's new to lifting, that is awesome. That will not continue, because if that continued, everyone would be goddamn Lou Ferrigno out here with no steroids needed. You just keep putting on 30 pounds of muscle each year. We'd all be 300-pound fucking monsters playing in the NFL or some shit. So those
I experienced that myself there when I was younger, big time, because I was all of a sudden I was working out at such a young age that I was like stupidly strong, like to the point where I didn't know I was like grabbing that thing that hard, or I turned the bolt and broke the fucking chain adjuster on my dirt bike. Like, I just started just busting shit like all the time, like literally. It was pretty rough. Even wrestling with my cousins, like fling them off of me rather than roll them off of me. It was pretty crazy.
It happens to most of to some degree like that. Like, you grab a door handle and like pull the door, like a broken ass old door or screen door or something. You know, like that's not a steel door, but you like pull that, rip a hinge or something, because you got way stronger and you haven't mentally in your nervous system, the whole mind-muscle connection hasn't caught up yet. Because we got to be real, man. As much as we love the gym and how much that's given both of us in our lives, it's not exactly like a natural thing for your body to go in and like overload certain muscles, get strong with fucking certain movements. Like, it's awesome that we can do that now, but you got to have that mental side too and be aware of it. And it happens to every young lifter. You get a little stronger than you realize with those newbie gains. So it's interesting, man. And everyone, the only reason I threw that out there, like for anyone who might be new to lifting and getting into it and really enjoying it, you got to be aware of it, because you will plateau, and then we've seen so many people do this over the years, man. You get those gains, and some people never move past that because they get stronger, whatever. They max out their bench, put on a couple pounds of muscle, look better. Then when it slows down, they get discouraged. They stop working out, go back to about where they started, and then maybe 6 months later, maybe before summer, before vacation, whatever, they do the whole process again, and it's like a never-ending cycle of non-progress. And so what you have to do is keep pushing it, so like I said, you get those little incremental gains. So the same way Rogan's still doing it with podcasting, we're at the beginning of this, so we're going to hit a plateau, you know, where we get pretty goddamn comfortable with this shit, but then we got to figure out how to keep making it better, whatever it is, keep making the audio better. It's going to be getting better guests eventually. We haven't even had a guest on, so we have nowhere to go but up from here.
We're doing good. But
we've talked about that enough. That's something we both want to do. So, Yeah, look out for that in the future. We'll definitely have some interesting people on GMV, without a doubt.
For sure, for sure. And we're only getting better with our technology. Like, we're still at the point where we got to reset our computers by turning it off, turning it back on to make shit work. But we're getting more up to date with the equipment. I feel pretty set up here. I got my Dragon mic going, and the mic on the other side. I feel pretty official, honestly. It's nice for the
better
50.
And better. Yeah, I was just telling
hell
you
before
we started here. I got a little mic stand coming. I can't wait for this shit, man. It'll feel all official. Like each thing we upgrade to, even though, like I said, we're still at the beginning of this process. And just a quick anecdote back to my early lifting days. Like I said, I started lifting hard about 16. In the first 2 years, so 16 to 18, and this is strict, I'm not exaggerating this, I promise, this is exactly what happened. I got a good amount stronger. I was not doing great workouts, a lot of machines, just what I had access to, a little bit of free weights. I gained 2 pounds. 2 pounds, that's it. So not the gains I was just talking about. That was the end of high school, 16 to 18. Freshman year of college, I got just a little bit of knowledge. Like, I knew I needed more protein in my diet, started hitting protein shakes. In those next 2 years, I put on almost 25 and then bumped it even farther following that, just because the missing piece for me was nutrition. That's what was holding me back from actually getting those size gains. So if you are new at working out, and whether you're looking for performance, just muscle gain, whatever, and you're not getting significant gains at the beginning, I'm talking you're not getting way stronger, way faster, way bigger, you're fucking something up. Like I said, it worked for my purposes. I wanted to get stronger for football. Maybe it wouldn't have helped me if I got way bigger. I played wide receiver, so it wouldn't have been a huge advantage. If I had put on those 20 pounds back then, I would have probably got moved to tight end or something. I'd rather play wide receiver. I like that shit, so it all worked out for me. But I'm just saying it's a good thing to recognize if you're new to any type of physical activity and you're not seeing a lot of growth fast, you're not doing it right. There's something missing. It's going to be the workouts, the rest, or the recovery, or the nutrition. I mean, it's pretty simple.
I mean, the biggest tip is just to explore shit. Like, when you feel like you're plateauing out in anything, start exploring what other people have done and stuff. Like, that's what's really led me into constantly pushing past my plateau, because I've plateaued a few times, like, and when I'm talking a few times, I'm saying, like, I made gains, and then for like a year and a half, I couldn't push further. And then all of a sudden I broke through, because I started really listening and experimenting with different things, and all of a sudden, boom, broke through, had a good run, plateaued off, and had to do the same thing. Right now, I'm actually somewhat in the same area, but I'm really kind of going back to like the all movements, you know what I mean? Like, just being fully mobile, fully functional in my motions, like, pretty much. I mean, most people, when they put their arm behind them, they don't have any power behind it, you know? So I've been working a lot on weird, like, muscle grouping together while lifting and stuff, which it's really helped me out. It's made some serious gains. And then I can't say enough about jiu-jitsu. Honestly, I already feel more rugged. Fucking having
a couple weeks in, you are.
Yeah, for sure. It's a big difference having somebody, even a small dude, because they use their legs a lot, and it's rugged. I can't say enough about it. I'm pretty pumped too. I was able to get my first side mount on a blue belt this past weekend. Yeah, no, it felt pretty accomplishing. So it was dope.
Just like I was talking about, just in the physical realm, this jiu-jitsu encompasses a lot more, the mental game, the whole side of that. You're going to see ridiculous gains right off. Like, you're going to learn a lot of stuff fast, and I've heard people say this specifically about jiu-jitsu before. Then you're going to level up, like, whatever it is. Some people might be stuck at blue belt, brown belt, whatever it is, and there for a while until you finally break through and get to that, like, real expert level, the black belt. And then I've heard some high-level jiu-jitsu guys even say that. Like, there's a huge difference between, like, a real expert-level black belt and just a black belt. Because now there's a lot of black belts out. Jiu-jitsu is popular as fuck, man. It's everywhere. So, yeah, I think that's great. And it's just, it's just another reminder to keep pushing instead of getting complacent and comfortable. Because, like I said, it's very easy to do. You can get and it fucks with your reward system, because, like, just going back to the muscle building analogy, gain a bunch of muscle, you lose it, then it feels great to gain it back. So it's like, it almost honey dicks you into thinking you're making progress when you're getting right back to where you went. You know what I mean? You got to.
I've been in that moment too, where I thought I was gaining, and I'm like, fuck. And I look back at some of the paperwork, I'm only doing the same weights. Damn it, I'm not even doing as good as it was. You know, not as many reps or whatever it was. Yeah, yeah, I definitely feel you there.
Yep, yeah, it's another one to look out for. They love to throw it out. If there's any ad, any workout program, supplement, drug, or whatever that says you're going to gain 20 pounds of muscle in a month. You know, the latest one floating around the internet, and it just blows my mind how this shit, like, it pops up, goes away, people forget, and it pops right back up. Is do, I think it's 100 push-ups a day for 30 days or something. Maybe it's I don't know. It's do a fuckload of push-ups every day for 30 days. I don't care what the workout is. Unless you're a total beginner, you won't see huge gains from anything in 30 days.
Yeah.
Like, unless you're mixing in a bunch of or something, you know, that's just not how the physical body works. So it's so foolish, and there's all these people seeing it, trying it, putting out reviews. Oh, look, and the classic one, and this is just every workout magazine, every stupid diet pill, a before and after picture, and you can just, like, before it was trickier. We didn't really know what was going on pre-internet. You see the magazine, well, damn, that guy looks like he lost 30 pounds of fat and gained some muscle. Now, you can look at it, no, motherfucker, you just put an Instagram filter on and took a better picture, like, got a tan or something. It's so clearly, to someone who knows even the basics about it, it's so clearly bullshit that it blows me away how many people can fall for that, because that's just like exercise physiology 101. You can't make ridiculous gains in a month without something else going on, like being a complete beginner, taking roids. Or the other one, this is the hardest one, because you can take an advanced-looking athlete, and you can trick people real easily with this. Take someone, and Tim Ferriss has actually done this. It's one of the things that pisses me off that he's done before. Someone like us, if you took either one of us at our current size, you're about, where, you still about 190? Well, say 200.
Actually, I'm about 200 now. Like,
we'll say you're about 200 pounds. Yeah, holding a good amount of muscle at 5'9", 5'10", whatever you're just for, and that's most people can picture that size, at least who have any experience in the gym. If we took you and put you on a straight starvation diet, right, like low caloric intake and maybe a bunch of cardio, whatever, made you go catabolic all the way down to, we'll say, 175, lost a lot of size and muscle, you could, if we then flipped the script 180 and went right back, gave you all the nutrients you need, all the workouts you need, you could probably put on almost that whole 25 pounds of muscle in 30 days. So that's the one where people will really pull some shady shit. You take someone, and one of the original ones I remember on this, there's an old bodybuilder, and there's a trainer. The guy invented the Nautilus machine, still pretty common in gyms. Arthur Jones, like, legendary trainer. One of his guys, that he made claims about putting on this ridiculous amount of muscle in a short time. He did actually do it. There were steroids involved, but that independently, because this is like an Arnold era guy, so that kind of bodybuilder. Very impressive dude. How he did it was, the guy got in a car accident, couldn't train for a while, all the muscle atrophied, then he went back, and whether you want to call it muscle memory or something going on with your nervous system, whatever, the ability to recover something you already had is much easier than building it originally. So then he puts it out there like, look, these high-intensity workouts put this much muscle in this crazy short amount of time. Well, it did, but that's just not looking at the whole picture, and it's so easy to skew facts. Like, that's when people say statistics never show the whole picture. It's really true. They don't. The stat can be true, but it doesn't hold up under scrutiny like that, and that shit just pisses me off, man. And mainly because early on, like, I would have believed that shit reading workout magazines. Oh, damn, this guy's taking this, doing this.
Hell yeah.
He put on 20
and
pounds
you know what
muscle.
That does for all of us? It fucks with all our mental fucking aspect of wanting to work out and do stuff, because, like you said, we get that gain, and we get that 30-day gain because we just started working out, and then you try going a little further, and you're like, what the fuck, I'm not looking as good, and then you get down on yourself. You know, it's really just that image that other people put out there as an advertising thing, but it's actually something we all look at as to hold ourselves up to. You know what I mean? And it fucks with us. It actually probably keeps more people from succeeding than it does succeeding. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, because I just noticed now with talking to people and stuff, doing my health history, that's a lot of the problem, is just being, like, not being up to par, up to whatever society thinks you should be at. You know what I mean? That's a huge impact on people, weight loss, their how much they work out, how they feel when they go to the gym, you know, because say they keep looking at this one dude over here who's juicing up, you know, and he's ganging, he's huge, he's just getting bigger. That's one thing. And then you got the other guy over here who is just a little skinnier, but like you said, he was there a couple months ago, he was talking about it, now he made those big gains. You just can't, you never feel good about yourself because it feels like you can't. Why can't you do that too, you know? It's fucked.
There really is a mindfuck going on with society in general, but definitely just with fitness. There's no question about that. And I think it seems like it's getting worse and worse because the reality is, like, any normal fitness magazine, pick up Men's Fitness. That's probably the biggest one out there. I would say probably 99 out of 100 people in the ads and articles are going to be juiced up on something, as well as they're taking hundreds of pictures and just picking the best one. Look, we all know if you go outside and take 10 pictures of yourself, one's going to look better. Like, we all had whatever. We had class pictures taken, or senior pictures when we were kids. That's just common sense. You take a couple, one's going to look the best. So you just have to, it's just like a little mental check when you're looking through stuff like that. Remind yourself that you're seeing someone at their very best. The same way, like, you might see an athlete, but I'm just reading a book right now, man. It's a great one by a guy who trained Michael Jordan. And goddamn, if you don't know who Michael Jordan is, at this point, come on, we've talked about him before. His name is now synonymous with greatness. That's how high of a level he achieved. You don't have to care about basketball. You don't have to care about sports. You don't have to care about anything to do with him. You can say that guy's the Michael Jordan of anything. It means he's great at it. That's how, it's like Einstein meaning genius. That's been used for so long.
I feel like when you're like, dude, you're the Michael Jordan of that shit. You know what I mean? Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
he's done something special in all ways, and it carries on, and that's why that name is going to be relevant in the same for athletics in the same way Einstein is for intellectuals. But yeah, I'm reading a book by the guy who trained him. It's called Relentless. A great book and an easy read too. I just picked myself up a Kindle finally, because I read a decent amount of books. It's just getting annoying to have all these stacks of books around, and especially like if I'm traveling or some shit. That's when I was out on that little West Coast trip that we talked about before. If I want to read a couple books, it's annoying to have a couple books with you when you're traveling. A Kindle's smaller than the smallest book, so it just made sense to me on that. So this is one of the first books that I read off it that I really like. It's called Relentless. I don't remember the trainer's name, but a lot of interesting stuff. And he's the guy. I'm pretty sure I've told you this one before, but Michael Jordan was one of the first basketball players, because they were one of the last sports to pick up weightlifting as in recognizing its benefit for the sport. Before it was like, no, it'll fuck up your shot. It'll make you slower. It'll make you bulky. All the bullshit arguments.
I remember you telling me.
Yeah, those things can be true if you do it wrong. That's and then that's the truth. If you just do a bunch of powerlifting and don't work on your shot, it'll fuck up your shot. Like, no shit. But that's just how it goes with that kind of thing. This guy actually had Michael Jordan training with weights on game days. So doing, again, and definitely not a powerlifting workout, but doing some kind of strength training on game days, which is that's unusual for any kind of athletic activity. So that's interesting. Just as a side note, I don't know if that was maybe a more mental thing, because as we just said, we're talking about one of the hardest working athletes of all times too. So
then I think we talked about this. I mean, I think it's just the feeling that you have. I mean, how do you feel after a workout? You know what I mean? You feel like I feel ready to go, honestly. I mean, yesterday was my first time I did jiu-jitsu, like, in the morning, and I was, like, fucking pumped, man, like, all day. Like, I definitely could have hit another workout in the afternoon. I didn't, because I need to recover, because I'm getting all those jiu-jitsu wounds lately. I got some nasty bruises and shit. But, feels good, though. Feels good. But, like, I think that's maybe that's what they were going for is that like your body's stimulated, it's ready to go, it's already worked out, those muscles have blood in them, there's been activity in it that day, and then his game that afternoon, his body's necessarily a little more ready to go than everybody else's because he's already fired most of his muscles and had his heart rate up, and he just has that mental aspect of being ready to launch, you know what I mean?
Well, that's why I said the mental, because I think the mental would probably be more important, because what we're talking about with the training, overloading a muscle in any kind of way would obviously not be productive when you're trying to perform an event where power output matters. So what I'm meaning by that is if you do some squats to try to build strength in the legs, that's not going to help you that day to jump higher.
No.
Even if it might help you jump higher overall, that's actually going to hurt you. So the reason I'm thinking is it was purely a mental game with Michael Jordan, because as we just noted, he's an obsessive worker by all accounts, like insane with it. And what it seems like that guy did, the trainer, which this was a really interesting thing, and it was amazing that he was able to do it with such a high-level athlete. And he breaks that all down in the book, like how he's able to convince Michael this was going to be beneficial stuff. He turned the weight training into Jordan's baseline. So what I mean by that is that was his everyday thing, so then he was able to perform at his normal level with weight training every day. So an analogy I like for this, which is it's been backed up by a few different studies, and just we both experienced this in the past. If you work a heavy physical job, like probably I would say the hardest job in terms of how much physical labor I was doing I've worked before was masonry, basically carrying bricks around for the mason to lay the bricks. I wasn't doing a lot of the actual masonry. I was doing all the hauling the work, mixing the mortar, all that shit. I remember thinking about it, and this was right in that time when I just talked about before, where I made some of my biggest size gains in the gym and strength. So I was like, is this fucking ruining my workouts, doing all this crazy work? And it is true, like, you overwork yourself all day. Yeah, you're not going to be able to work quite as hard in the gym, but if that's just your normal day, which it was for me, obviously, that was my job, I'm doing that every day, it's just your baseline, and then you're able to add stimulus on top of that, and by that I mean the workouts, and still get increased muscle gains, all that. It doesn't matter. Your body will adjust to whatever the normal day-to-day is. And, of course, there's a limit. Like, you can't work 23 hours a day and just sleep one. But you can't all brick all day, then go crush a workout and get great gains from it, as long as you're fueling and resting the way you should. I did it. It worked well. So is it optimal to get the strength gains? Of course not. Optimal is what, like, a professional athlete would be doing. You know, wake up, hit a workout, eat, take a nap, hit another workout, have everything perfect, like Jordan probably was, and that's why I'm just speculating that's why he was able to it was probably a very light weight workout in the morning, which was just his baseline, so got his body at its normal state, and the mental feedback was worth doing that to take a tiny hit to the energy levels, not enough to really hold him back.
No, especially if he can get a nap in or something, you know. And I would like to know what workouts he would be doing before a game. Like, did they describe any of that in the book at all?
Not in this book. Like I heard that way before this book, so he's not breaking down exact workouts. This guy he seemed to be NBA focused, but he's worked with a ton of just high level athletes, like the best in the world. So like Dwayne Wade is another one. Kobe was probably the second most well known guy to people who aren't basketball fans. Everyone knows Kobe.
Yeah.
Not many people like Kobe. Everyone knows him. As a basketball
fan, kind of like Michael Vick. It's kind of like Michael Vick. Not many people like him, but everybody knows him.
That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, man, because it is like that, except Michael Vick didn't complete his comeback. So most people forget.
Is true.
This holds up every time. I've gotten into arguments about this with people, man. When an athlete does something super shady, they fuck up bad. Like, say, get aired out for killing a bunch of pit bulls in fucked up ways after even. I mean, the dogfighting thing's one issue already. That's already fucked up. He added a bunch of other fucked up things on top of that. And I know some people disagree with this, but just hear me out if you're a dog lover and you're getting all pissed off at it, because he did do some fucked up things. But if he had come back and had an MVP season, nobody would have cared. And
that's true. I mean, it wouldn't be as much of a joke now, anyways. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
Michael
almost did.
There's a lot of fucking jokes out there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, he came back and he almost did complete. He had one or two seasons where it looked like he might break through. The issue with him is he was never at that total. He was a star, no doubt. He was never anywhere near like the Michael Jordan level before that.
Yeah.
So he would have had to double his efforts to get back to that. Another one we saw who came close to doing it, but he still has a chance just because of his sport. Tiger Woods. What went on with him, man? He had that whole, banging like 20 hookers issue. If he had come back and started winning the Masters over and over again like he did before, I'm telling you, no one would have cared. And he almost did. He came back, played all right, but he hasn't been able to get. And he's a better one, example than Michael Vick, because he was the peak. He was basically the Michael Jordan of golf. And looking back, you can still say that, but there's a big black mark on his career now. So this is a full circle with it, and this is my real rationalization. Other athletes have done it, but Kobe's probably the most profound example, because he's arguably, and as a basketball fan, you can debate this all day, Kobe's consensus top 3 of all time. I mean, some people might put him top 5 if you really want to go all the way back to these old-ass players and shit. But and that's coming from a Kobe hater. I fucking hate the guy. I always have. He's easily one of the greatest basketball players we've ever seen. Kobe allegedly, I'll throw that, that's allegedly raped a girl, settled for a bunch of money out of court. That's a pretty big hit on his public image. Came back to have multiple MVP seasons and championships and finals MVPs, and now no one. There's still maybe you might get the hint of a joke here. Kobe retired as one of the greatest players ever. It was all over every sports channel for weeks and months with the day Kobe retired. It was a huge deal. They didn't mention once about the rape thing. And that's kind of a big deal. I mean, you can't like.
Well, when you have that much of shining about, when you know what I mean, when your name is in the sun all the fucking time, it's pretty hard to throw the dark on it. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell? It's pretty difficult.
In a fucked up way it is, and that's what I'm saying. If an athlete like that still continues to perform at the highest level, what everyone expects out of them, it really doesn't matter what they do off the field or court. They can fuck up bad.
It's that image shit. It's that image shit again, you know what I mean? Like, I even bet there's people that feel bad, be like, oh, well, we can't bring that shit up because Kobe's doing so well, you know what I mean? Like, just say that, or people might even be thinking that, oh, we can't hate on a person that is doing so well in this. We can't bring that up because now that'll make him look bad, you know what I mean? Might not be good for the kids, you know. Some might. It's all that image stuff, which is just ridiculous.
Well, what it is, man, when you get someone like a Kobe, and even he seems like a total piece of shit person in athletics and outside of it. His greatness aside, he's just similar. Michael Jordan is also supposed to be a total piece of shit person.
Really?
Absolutely. Across where he
for some reason I heard something cool about Michael Jordan, like he was a hell of a person to meet or something. I don't know what the hell.
You're confusing him, because Michael's known for it more than any other athlete I even know of off the top, for being a dick in person and just being like borderline psychopath on everything. Like he's a big golfer as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure
maybe he's just extreme,
he's Michael Jordan.
Man. Maybe he's just extreme all the time.
No, hold up. There's no question about that. He's He's as extreme as it gets.
That's true.
He's supposed to be. If you play him in golf, he'll try to bet you like $100,000 a hole, lose, and then be like, all right, double down, because he has the money to back it up too. So
oh shit.
He's just an obsessive winner and just supposed to not be a nice guy at all, like total dick. That's because his entire focus has been on being like obsessively good at what he did, and the biggest issue with him is he probably hasn't been able to translate it to anything else outside of basketball, because he was so absurdly successful in that. He's set financially, he's set fame-wise, he's set in every way. He doesn't have anything to pour that crazy intense energy into now. So he tries to do it with stuff like golf and that, but he tried to do it with baseball. Remember, Michael Jordan quit basketball after he won 3 championships, went and played baseball. And in his own right, he was a decent baseman. He wasn't going to be an MLB superstar, but he played good for some like minor league teams, and then went back and won 3 more championships doing what the fuck he was supposed to do. So Yeah, it's because of that.
I'm surprised he's not making movies or something. You know what I mean? I feel like he would be somebody cool to have in a movie. There's a lot of movies with basketball stars and shit out there. I'm surprised he doesn't drive for that. Like Arnold, I feel is similar to that aspect of he's got the fame, he's got the money, he's done pretty much everything he said he's going to do. So what does he keep doing? He keeps pushing himself, even though how old he is, to do these action movies and just to be better. Like in one of his things, he was talking about just he wants to be better all the time, even in movies and stuff. So maybe that's what he, just dumps into. That's his thing to release, over because he has everything else. Michael Jordan, why doesn't he make some fucking movies?
Alright, so that's an interesting point, man. It's a good one, and Arnold's a perfect example, I think, of someone who has been able to translate that crazy athletic drive to anything else he wanted to in his life. We've talked about him before. The other one we just talked about last episode, The Rock's done almost the exact same thing. But I think there is a distinct difference. So with Jordan, first, we got to add in, because I know there's some old basketball fans screaming out there, he did Space Jam. Come on.
I know. I've been thinking about... When you talk about Michael Jordan, honestly, because I didn't watch basketball or anything, that's all I think about is Space Jam. I'm just saying, like, Arnold's got, like, a fucking artillery of movies out there,
I think I have an answer. I don't know if it's Jordan's the only one who could answer this for sure, but so what Arnold did... he's, of course, recognized as the most well-known bodybuilder, one of the best. He isn't the absolute best in his sport. We talked about, if you want our opinion on bodybuilding as a sport, go back last episode, 49, we break that down. We'll call it a sport for the sake of this discussion.
Yes.
Arnold wasn't the actual best. He was the most famous. He wasn't the most accomplished in his sport. There's been at least one other guy who's won 8 Mr. Olympias, and the guy who's winning it now, I mentioned him in that last episode too. I think he'll probably break Arnold's record as well. I think he tied it this year. I bet he'll break it.
I think I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name either, but he's a fucking
from Denver,
monster.
Man. Phil Heath. Yeah, shit, you might see him sometime around there. Yeah, he's a savage. But he's probably a better bodybuilder than Arnold. Who the fuck knows who Phil Heath is? No one, unless you've read way too many fitness magazines like me. So this is what I'm getting to. I think the difference, Arnold, and he says this the whole way, Arnold was looking at bodybuilding was a stepping stone, just a piece of his career. And he had to get to crazy high levels, push himself insanely hard, but it was just that piece. Arnold always wanted to transcend that. He wanted to go to movies, then he wanted to go to politics, and that's what I think allows him. Arnold's going to keep shooting for the stars till the day he dies. It's just, that's clearly his nature. Jordan was the absolute best in the one specialty thing. So what I'm saying is I think Arnold was more of like maximizing a bunch of different areas at once, which does mean you can't get quite as far in each individual one. Jordan just maxed out basketball so ridiculously far that, like I said, in all other areas, he doesn't have to do anything else, because that was his one path. Like, money-wise, Jordan's probably, and this is because of his shoes, of course, not just because of the career, he's a billionaire, a legitimate and actual billionaire off, and then most of that money's through his shoes, but also through the fame and all that. He doesn't have to worry about money at all. He can blow hundreds of thousands of dollars sucking.
Yeah, I mean, if he wanted to, he can get fucking commercial tomorrow. You know what I mean? Be like,
and he still does.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
How much is he getting paid for those shitty Hanes commercials, man?
Exactly. Fucking Hanes. Come on, you can't do something better than fucking Hanes.
For a couple years, this is like 5 or 6 years ago, and this is what the level of ridiculous status Michael Jordan is at. He had a Hitler mustache in the Hanes commercials, and no one, he's so fucking crazy, intense, famous, driven, all that, no one was able to tell him, dude, you can't rock a Hitler mustache. You just can't do that. I don't know, man. Maybe in like 100 years, 1,000 years, that will be distant enough that it won't be like socially unacceptable to cut your mustache like fucking Hitler, the most evil person ever. Michael Jordan just did it, and everyone... I
had no clue about that.
Dude, he's got to have agents, managers, the people from Hanes, producers. How many hundreds of people were too scared to tell him, dude, Hitler stash probably isn't the best look. You know, you can go any other direction. Do whatever weird shit you want. Don't grow a Hitler stash. He did that in the commercials. So, back to the original point, man. What I'm saying is I think Michael Jordan was an absolute specialist, whereas Arnold was a generalist. Both super high performers in their own right, but you see what I'm saying? How it's kind of different.
Yeah, that's a good breakdown. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, it's just like
still, I feel like even though you'd max out, I could just tell the way I am. I'm starting to get back into the way I used to be with my work ethic, just like hammering away. Like I'm loading it up differently and I'm doing things differently, but I am hammering away, getting back into just doing shit for fucking hours and hours just because that's what I'm used to, and I kind of thrive to do that. So I just feel like, why wouldn't Jordan want to find something? I know he likes his golf, but that seems like it's just something to have fun with. Why wouldn't he want to have something else to drive into? He's got the money, he's got the time.
I agree with you.
You know what I mean?
I'm like, I think both of us and the majority of other people who are driven to have success in any area would be more, or at least want to aspire to be more like Arnold, would try to do one thing, and especially, like I said, just relate it to us, man. Most of our goal, not most of our goals, but a lot of our primary goals are athletically driven, but we both know, man, that shit's going to go away for us when you're 30, 40, 50, whenever it is, maybe 60 if that TRT really works. Either way, we're not going to be able to push ourselves physically as we age the way we do now. So you know, and I can say this confidently for both of us, that's going to transition to other stuff, whether it's business, family, whatever it is. You know what I mean? I'm going to have to put the energy I put into work
more podcasting
in different ways. And just to clarify, we've been over this before too, never going to stop working out.
No way.
Always going to be working out, but the reality is you can't do the same workouts as you age. The body breaks down, and the whole dynamic just changes. I mean, that's obvious. So, yeah, I think Jordan's just a unique case study with it, because, as I said, he was had such a singular focus, and it was so successful, and the GOAT, greatest of all time. Really can't debate that, whether you're a basketball fan. And I had an old friend who he used to pull out these old players, say this one can compare to Jordan, this one. No, they fucking can't. I'm going to clear that up for all the non-basketball fans out there. If you're a basketball fan, you want to chop it up with me about who's the greatest, and you don't think it's Jordan, I love to have that discussion. If you're not a basketball fan, just assume that Jordan's the best, because he fucking is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think like I said, I think he maxed that out so hard. There wasn't room for anything else. There wasn't room for even the thought of translating to something else. And because, as I said, it took care of the other things. Like, say Jordan maxed out in a sport that wasn't as popular as basketball. Jordan maxes out in curling. You know what I mean? He's the best curling. We all know what curling is. It's that retarded sport where you shave the ice. It's one of those Olympic sports that you're like, why the fuck is this still an Olympic sport? So
didn't they take a wrestling out of Olympic sports, and they still have that fucking in there? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Jordan's the best curler ever. No one can fuck with him. He's just shaving that ice like no one before, man. Maybe after that, because he's still broke because it's curling. No one gives a fuck. Maybe he's got to go on to be like the best Italian ice maker or something.
Yeah,
because
he knows how to shape that
shit. You know what I mean? He was so wildly successful with basketball, and it took care of all other areas that might force him into something else. If he wanted to be famous, can't get more famous than he did off basketball. He wanted to be rich, can't get richer than he got off basketball. He really, if he wants to have more social status, more alpha male shit, he can't transcend anything he did through basketball. So he's kind of stuck, and it's almost it's kind of sad looking at him now, because he's clearly a very unhappy dude. Like I said, every account I've heard is just a miserable person, and this goes back to even when he was playing. But it sounds like he's so. I still think it was totally worth it for him to do what he did. I think that was Michael Jordan's path, and he did.
Wonder what it is that makes him a miserable fuck, you know.
A lot of things, man. A lot of people who have achieved greatness, think about it could have been a shitty childhood. I'm just bringing that. I don't know details about Jordan's childhood, but I'm just saying so many famous high performers have had ridiculously shitty childhoods. Because we're on MJ's right now. Think about Michael Jackson. I mean, he had the most fucked up childhood ever. It turned him into one of the biggest star performers ever, and obviously didn't end well either. So I don't know. It's hard to say.
True.
Like I said, it goes back to what I said before, and the only one who could really answer these questions would be Jordan himself, and that motherfucker's not talking. So we'll never truly know on that. But yeah,
so
man,
in talking, like I just was thinking about this, and talking the way we were about like Arnold and stuff in comparison, what would you say? Like, I feel like now that we've been talking about, you know, how Arnold is and how he just is overall, I feel like Joe Rogan's got that in a sense, in a different way, but same thought. Like, he is somebody that reaches more people than any other networking group, like, in the world. Mm-hmm. Like, more people download his shit than anybody else, like, and he's like accomplishing and being good at a lot of things. Not the best, not the greatest, but known for them, you know? So, that's fucking dope. I just kind of put that in there. I look up to that guy. I mean, he kind of feels like, maybe because of when I got to know him, or when he really started taking off. I know he did Fear Factor and shit, but he's kind of like our age. He's just a little younger than Arnold, you know, our age fucking inspiration.
Yeah, I agree with you, man, of course. Yeah, and there's no lack of praise for Rogan on this, but let's give him some more, because the dude deserves it. Come on.
Yeah.
And this is so many different people who have done podcasts. He's the reason why we're doing it. The first podcast I ever listened to, I've mentioned it before, it's called London Real. It's probably the biggest one outside of the U.S. A monster show. It's pretty shitty now, in my opinion, but at the beginning it was really great. They started it just because they listened to Rogan. It's two guys in London. Yes, and it was one jiu-jitsu guy and one stockbroker, and they were both Rogan fans. Ended up chopping it up after jiu-jitsu, and we're like, we should start a podcast. Now that's one of the biggest podcasts in the UK, and I will say on that, because as much as I liked it at the beginning, it was the first podcast I ever listened to, and then shortly after, so I jumped to Rogan after that, because I heard them say we were inspired to do this by the Joe Rogan Experience. So I'm like, oh shit, I'd probably go listen to that, and it didn't disappoint. What I will say is they still have some, because London Real is such a big show at this point, get some ridiculous guests, so it might be worth checking out just to see if there's anyone you're interested. Like, they just had that, he was just on Rogan recently too, but he's been on London Real a few times. That old bodybuilder Dorian Yates.
Oh, yeah. I remember hearing him on Rogan.
Outside of Arnold, I'd say he's probably the second most interesting guy in bodybuilding. And he's older now. I mean, he was a champ back in the, I think, early 90s, but he's a perfect fit for a Rogan-type interview, because he's such an open-minded dude who's also achieved such high levels in a lot of different aspects of his life, starting with bodybuilding and then business, all that other shit.
Yeah.
He also likes to smoke a ton of weed, so he's
That's
got that
dope, too.
going
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, but I mean, that was the first podcast I listened to, was Rogan. You, the one that told me about it, and I was like, soon as I fucking listened to it, I was like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I never talked to him, not talked to him, but listened to anything he had before. Like, I never knew how much of a badass comedian was or anything until you introduced me to the podcast. And the first time I listened to it, I was like, this is literally what me and Luke talk about all the fucking time for years now, working out together. Like, it hit me so strong. That's why I'm definitely so motivated to do this podcast with you, because this thing really something else. I really enjoy it. I feel like
the way I like to sum it up, I've been saying this for a while now, man. I think it goes for a lot of us longtime Rogan listeners. I feel like I don't have a religion, man. I feel like I'm kind of a Rogan disciple.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm never gonna get to a religion. Yeah, that's
I like
it.
I like that. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing special things. I'm excited, because we know we're going to get good content, great interviews for him. I'm actually just curious to see where it goes, because what you just mentioned, I think it was Jordan Peterson, that Canadian professor.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
He's been on, so he's the one who brought up, he was like, Joe, you're literally reaching more people than any interviewer ever. So it's just, and this is happening in all different arenas of life.
He never answered that question either. because Jordan Peterson asked him, "What do you think? What do you think, Joe? Are you the greatest interviewer in the world? Because you've interviewed more people that are."
Well, it's because you can't really answer with that, and I bet Rogan's thought about it, and I bet it'll come out because this is interesting. I started listening to Rogan. He's hit episode 1,000 not that long ago.
Yeah.
I started listening probably in like the 400 or 500s, I think roughly around there. Back then, the show was already pretty big. Like, it was nowhere near what it was now. Podcasts aren't what they are now. Because podcasts are really becoming, like, the dominant media format. They're compared to the old-style media. But, so, Rogan, people used to say to him, like they'd make references to how big the show is. And, like, Joe, you're doing something crazy here. And he would always, the same response. It was the kind of thing, like, when stuff comes up on his podcast over and over again, he'll have responses that he said to other people, so they just come out right away. He would go, "I'm just a guy who sits down and talks, like that's it," and he would totally be all humble. Yeah. He would be overly humble. As the show grew to a point where he really couldn't deny it, he's now like, "Look, I didn't plan it, but yeah, it is like this is a ridiculously huge, influential show." I mean, not just the numbers, the geographical reach, man. There's probably little kids in Pakistan listening to the same shit we're listening to, you know. There's people in Russia listening to it. Man, I bet, I've never seen this before because I don't speak any other languages besides English. Some shit I should probably learn. I'm so fully English right now. I bet there's someone who just translates Rogan's podcast into other languages, just word for word steals it. And
dude, you know, like that's
a good thing.
What if like over time, you know, because who knows what this thing turns into? What if enough people? Because there's, like, stupid amount of numbers, and they do just keep going up from what I know from listening to Rogan and Jamie talk about it. Their numbers are just climbing, so what if, like, world peace is because we all listen to Rogan and we can relate? You know what I mean? Like, we're all like...
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. Yeah, what if he really did solve some of the bullshit we have going
like
on?
Some of it. I'm not saying, like, so all big. Of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. This is where our Rogan disciple side is coming out. Yeah, maybe Joe could solve the world's problems. Yeah, he's doing something special for sure. So on that, man, I was going to bring this up anyway, but perfect since we're already talking about Rogan, which for anyone who hasn't listened to GMV before, we're going to do this every episode. If we don't, we're having an off day. She's always coming with some interesting shit, and we need to discuss this. So every time she pops up, man, I'm impressed, and now I'm expecting it, and I'm still impressed. That comedian Whitney Cummings.
Yeah.
She's just smart as fuck, man. Every time she comes, and I think the reason I appreciate it is she way overthinks everything, which is something I have a tendency to do myself, so I can see that, relate to it, and, like, hear something good out of it. It's just interesting shit she comes with every time, and it definitely helps, too, and this is something we could learn from when we get to interviewing people, man. The interviews that Rogan does with, like, just super smart professors or whatever, they're usually great, and he's really good. He's amazing at doing them and getting the right info out and making it a comfortable conversation. But the interviews with people like Whitney, who are legitimately like his friends, are almost always the best ones.
Yeah.
And that's why we've talked about this before. We should probably have one of our friends on for the first interview we do, you know, quote unquote interview, because what we really want to do is just what Rogan does, just have a fucking conversation.
Hell yeah.
Talk. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
We're not trying to sit down and be like, all right, point number one. You know what I mean? That would never be our style.
Yeah.
So
I think some of my favorite with Rogan and his friends, I think it's Tom Papa. Isn't Tom Papa one of his good buddies? I think hear him on there quite a bit.
Friend for,
they have some good times on there. I love where they go. They just go off on these crazy ass tangents.
That's why I don't know if you've this is like the first mistake people make when they start listening to Rogan, because what you do, he has such a diverse collection of guests, and some of you recommend the podcast to someone and go find someone you like listening to, and they'll start listening to depending on what they're into. Say if you recommended it to someone from jiu-jitsu class who for some crazy reason had like lived in the mountains with no interview and didn't know who Rogan was, you're like, you got to listen to this. He should probably go listen to some episodes about jiu-jitsu and fighting. If you recommend it to like a real academically oriented person, maybe someone from school, they might want to go listen to like a Jordan Peterson or a Neil deGrasse Tyson or something. Or if it's someone who's just interested in working out, he's had tons of good trainers on. There's a
who's that conspiracy guy? Who's the conspiracy guy? Alex Jones.
Eddie, Alex. Yeah, you get a crazy conspiracy. Yeah, you go right to Alex Jones and Eddie Bravo. That's all you need. But slowly, you listen to one, and you're like, all right, this is a great interview about something I'm interested in. The beauty of it, of the diversity of the guests, is it opens you up to other stuff that you wouldn't have originally be interested in. So what happens so much to people is they listen to Rogan, and they cut out all the fighters and comedians. Because I'm not a huge comedy fan. Even it's fun. It's a funny episode, but I'm looking for like maybe the more intellectual stuff or whatever. And the fighters, there are people. So many people that I've gotten hooked on Rogan, love the show. Like I just skip over the fighter episodes. Man, so many of those are gold. Like are those guys super smart usually? No, there's some of them, but I'm just being honest. Usually they're not, but they usually drop some fucking gems about their career or their work ethic or their business or something.
I do like them. Sometimes they just get too fucking rowdy though. Like there's a couple of them there where I just ended up turning it off because he had like 4 guys on there and everybody's just fucking yelling at each other.
You're thinking about the fight companions. I'm just talking about fighters getting interviewed. But the fight companions, that is the truth. I like those episodes just because they're funny, just like some of the comedian ones. But they definitely. Sometimes it turns into Joe babysitting his drunk ass friend. Like, and that is what it is, man.
It's best when he's drunk as shit too, and it just like gets all fucking out of control. Nobody gives a shit anymore, you know.
So this is kind of interesting, man. So those fight companions, for people who don't know, it's kind of weird if you listen to them after, because it's just like 4 guys getting drunk, yelling at each other. What they're doing is they go to Rogan's studio during a UFC event or like a big boxing match sometimes. And they format it like we're going to watch the fights and talk. They usually don't end up watching shit unless it's like a giant fight. Then they'll focus in on it. Usually the fight's just on in the background, and they're just talking shit about whatever. But what a lot of people have done, and I've only watched them live in conjunction like that a few times, what it's meant to do is to replace the shitty commentary on the TV. Because there's some alright commentators on the UFC, but if Rogan's not there commentating, it's not that great. And really, like most sports, the commentators usually aren't there. You got to get a rare one to be good. So what they want you to do is mute the TV and have that fight companion playing. So then if they actually are focused on the fight, you get like a better version of the commentary. What the UFC did shortly maybe a year or 2 after they started doing that. And they're just testing right now. But this is where the UFC has been so smart with their internet marketing and the reason why it's grown as a sport and a brand and all that. They have an option on some of their fights. Instead of the regular commentaries, usually it's a couple former fighters, a couple sports analysts, whatever. Rogan's on all the big pay-per-views. He doesn't do as many of the live shows anymore. The UFC has an option on some of their shows to have a former fighter and Snoop Dogg doing the commentary instead. But that's such a great idea for people who just don't want to hear the normal boring shit. You know what I mean? Who just don't care. They'd rather hear Snoop sitting there sipping some gin and juice and smoking a blunt, and then you have the fighter there too to give like some legitimate fight advice. It's Uriah Faber, for anyone who's familiar, a pretty famous fighter. I think he's still fighting, but he might be about to retire. He's on the edge at least, but definitely one of the more famous older fighters. Him and Snoop just chopping it up, talking shit, and like kind of commentating on the fights. Snoop's a hard guy to keep focused. He's kind of gonna do what he wants to do, and he's already fucked up a few times. Like,
but when you're smoking moon rocks in every fucking joint, you know, come on.
What it is, it's basically exactly like Snoop's show. I always forget what it's actually called, like GGN or whatever that YouTube show.
GGN. I listen to it once in a while.
It's
honestly
basically like that, except instead of Snoop doing his show, it's him watching fights with a fight instead. So but what I'm
honestly that GGN too, just real quick, that is actually a pretty decent show. Like I liked one on he had Ice Cube on there, and like they broke down his career and like making movies and shit, and it was actually pretty dope. I really enjoy a lot of it. Sometimes I don't know who they are because I'm not like I don't know a lot of rap. Yeah, I don't know a lot of rap, so I wouldn't know the artist or whatever. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. I always feel like I gotta smoke weed when you listen to that. Like if you are not able to smoke, don't listen to it because it's hard not to.
Not worth it at all. The only thing it'll do if you do that is make you want to smoke weed. So yeah, not recommended in a sober state. But yeah, that's a funny show, and that's Snoop's another one. I think he still kind of makes music, but let's be real, Snoop's really at the age where he's too old to be like a popular rapper now. He could still he could pop up as a feature on someone else's song, and everybody be like, yeah, that's Snoop, like this is great. But
yeah.
As great as his career was in music, Snoop's not putting out #1 singles anymore. But what he has been able to do, which is very rare for old musicians, even ones as successful as him, is stay relevant in other areas by diversifying and doing stuff like his own show, doing this UFC commentary. Snoop's basically he's just stayed grinding, which is it goes right back to what we talked about before, man. It's such a hard thing for a lot of people to do, to get really successful at something and then translate that to other stuff. In his own very unique way, Snoop's been able to do that too, to keep it going to other areas of his career when most other rappers crash and burn and blow all their money at that point.
Yeah.
Same way with athletes, unfortunately.
Have you watched that? Have you watched that documentary, The Redemption? Snoop's Redemption?
I never got around
to
that's
a real good one to watch. Like, just, like, hearing the story, and, like, he's very truthful and honest in it, and it's nice. It's a really good documentary. It was done well. And I like his music and stuff. I don't know how recent it is, honestly, his Rastafari music is, but that
was like 3-4 years ago now.
Yeah, so it's just a little different Snoop for sure, but it's pretty good. I really enjoyed that. Like I actually thought higher of him after I saw a documentary. You know what I mean? Like I never thought. Go ahead.
I didn't get to watch it. I think a lot of people, that's what I heard. Like it gave because most people like to shit on Snoop's public persona, but I've been a hip hop fan since I was
I've always enjoyed him, but my respect level definitely went up because I thought he was just like some rapper, you know. And then when you hear his story and just how truthful he is and how it affects him when he's talking and stuff, you can just see that he's being raw, and it's pretty cool. It's definitely something to watch for sure.
Yeah, he's a perfect example, man. And this is just it goes back to that old fucking cliche saying, "Don't judge a book by its cover." When you see a rapper, if they're super successful, it's almost never going to be just what you see. It's never going to be selling drugs, slapping hoes, and all the stuff that people like in the news want to bitch at him for. That's what he's made his career at. Like being a rapper is very similar to being like an actor. If you want the best example of this, it's 50 Cent. We all know 50 Cent was like middle school, high school for us when he was at the peak. He had a ridiculously successful rap career. His biggest hit ever was called In the Club, talking about popping bottles and shit. He had another classic jam called High All the Time. Very great hip hop song.
Yeah.
Most people who don't see past that very surface level wouldn't know this. 50 doesn't smoke or drink since he was a little kid. I think it was since he went into juvie when he was like 17 or 18, came out, and he'll break it all down in interviews. It's very interesting, like calculated shit. He's like, I just realized if I wasn't under the influence of stuff on the streets of I think it was Queens is where it's from. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Queens. Yeah, Jamaica, Queens. New York City, he's like, and everyone else was fucked up around me, and we're all doing the same stuff, we're hustling, selling drugs. He's like, I had a huge advantage on them. So I was like, all right, I'm just not going to do this. And he held it up through his career. And think about that.
Smart fucker.
As a rapper's career, if he's going to be around, especially when he actually was in New York City growing up, he needed all the help he could get. Like he also, another thing that it's not hidden, but most people wouldn't know about him. He was like a regional Golden Gloves boxing champion too. So he learned how to use his hands early. Yeah. And he's still what he's carried from that clearly with a little chemical enhancement along the way is dude still works out like a savage and has throughout his whole career. I mean, 50 was always known for that. He was that rapper that you're like, damn, looks like he should be playing football or something.
Yeah.
It's because he actually trains like an athlete along with being a rapper. But realize that still making songs like In the Club were what was going to be a #1 hit. Making a song about not smoking and drinking, he's not getting a lot of plays off that. That's not hip hop. That's not where hip hop was.
Gotta be realistic here, yeah.
Yeah, hip hop. If it ever gets there, I doubt it. Now it's gone even farther in that direction. You can make a song about drinking, it might do okay, but if you're not talking about a little Molly or a little something else, you're probably not getting
Isn't there a fucking
that.
song out there that all it is all about Molly?
So
Molly,
it's
talks about doing Molly and like all these younger kids. I just remember.
There's tons. So
and the younger kids singing it, and they don't even know what fucking Molly is. Most of them, you know, they think it's some girl.
There's tons of songs like that. Yeah, Molly's seems to be still holding pretty steady. It's been like the pop culture drug, and it is hilarious. It's what you just referenced. Songs that like little kids are singing, and some of them might know, most of them probably don't. Their parents damn sure don't know what these people are talking about.
Everybody thinks they're talking about this girl named Molly. Who the fuck is she?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Who's Molly?
Who the fuck is Molly?
But it seems to be like the dominant drug, and you can see. Like I said, just as a hip hop fan myself, I like a lot of different types of music. That's always been my favorite, and I've seen how it progressed. Like I started listening to hip hop really like a little bit pre the 50 Cent era, so more like the Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, that, and then I saw it transition over. You saw Eminem, 50 Cent, and now all the way to where it is now. It's heavily the current state it's in. It's almost like a borderline with that EDM festival shit, and a lot of the same artists pop up at the same concerts and venues and all that because what they're doing is, like we said, it's heavily influenced by the drugs. It's just party music. That seems to be the dominant genre at this point, from what I can tell. Like I said, I wouldn't say I'm like super knowledgeable about all the music. I keep up enough with it to know what's going on, and it's just interesting to me how that shit changes over time. And currently, it's like electronic, heavily produced party music with no lack of focus on the drugs.
Yeah, no.
And everything else. So.
And like even the music, like you just said, it's all like most of like it's like electronic, like drug-based music. Like it's perfect for when you're on the drug. That usually they all have about the same beat. Like I feel like most of the music I hear today on the radio has like a very similar beat. It's hard to tell them even apart. I mean, back in the day, you used to be able to clearly distinguish like different bands and stuff. Now it's like, fuck it all. It's all the same. You know what I mean?
When
it's all
the
same.
Yeah, when you're not familiar with the artist, it is very easy for it to all just kind of go together and sound very similar. But I've thought this through before, man, because for a little while, that whole EDM, dubstep, all that shit really popped off when I was in college a few years ago. And I gotta admit, at the beginning of it, I was kind of a hater, even though there's occasionally songs I liked. Like, it wasn't my genre of music. As I said, I've always liked hip-hop, little rock, some older stuff, reggae, you know what it is.
Yeah.
But, we all like a little reggae. But no, when the electronic stuff came out, I was a little bit of a hater on it, even though, again, I could recognize some of the songs sound good, but what I was really hating on was more the culture, and that was a closed-minded perspective on my part, because it was these weird festivals, and we all know what I'm talking about, like the glow stick shit, going way too deep, whether it's Molly, acid, or even something, like there's all kinds of designer drugs that I'm not even familiar with, and it was just weird to me because I wasn't part of that culture.
A green like Power Ranger.
Exactly, like dressing up in that weird shit, really just letting loose. Like what it's evolved to is the like where Burning Man's at now, and Burning Man just happened a few weeks ago, and I heard a little bit about that. I wanna talk about Burning Man in a second, but just to wrap up what I was saying about the music. I kind of shit on it at the beginning, which, now that's dumb. To shit on any popular music just because you don't like it, that's stupid. Like I said, no one was forcing me to listen to it. Just because if it's popular, obviously a lot of people like it. Even if it's just because they're all on Molly, they still like it. I don't know, so if they're having a good time doing those drugs, listening to that shit, I shouldn't hate on it. And now what brought me around to it is because so many artists that I would like, old and new, have blended with that genre. Either they've collabed with a DJ or used a beat, and I'm like, alright, well, I can't say I don't like this genre when I like all these songs that are kind of part of it, at least influenced by it. So, that was a mistake I made, and that's just, we're still both young as fuck, man. But this is when I see so many people as they age just get so close-minded to anything that like wasn't their era. They just want to shut it out. Like, oh, this is garbage.
Makes no sense to me. Makes no sense.
Foolish. So this was my whole thought process around that. Think about, and this was way before us, what's going on now, the whole drug culture and partying around like EDM, and it kind of grew out of like the rave culture, that kind of thing. Is that really any different than like the Grateful Dead shit and like Woodstock hippie days? They were listening to weird music. They didn't different type for sure, but doing a bunch of drugs, going wild, partying, just in their own context. So, what's different about the festivals they're doing now?
Nothing.
It's just the, it's just
I don't think there's anything different. I mean,
that's what I'm
honestly,
saying.
like you just said, it's technology, maybe difference in drugs because of time. You know what I mean? And generation, shit's gonna change.
Yeah.
So, but it's all the same.
Surface level, all the surface level stuff is different, but the core of it, it's just people who want to go wild, party, listen to some weird shit, and it's music that's tailored around whatever substance happens to be popular, whether it's Molly, acid, or whatever it is. So, even though it's not my thing personally, like I'm trying to do my best now not to hate on it just because it's either not from my time or just not my style right now. Like, again, if a bunch of people like it, there's a reason behind it. So. Yeah, back to the Burning Man. So you're familiar with the Burning Man Festival, I'm sure.
Yeah.
People are. It's a gigantic festival in the Nevada desert somehow. And first off on that, I drove all the way through the Nevada desert going to Vegas.
I don't know why the fuck you'd want to be partying out there.
Yeah, please put that somewhere where there's like more water and greenery like that. Man, that sounds like a tough place to have a festival. But either way, it's a gigantic festival, like heavily centered around drugs and growth and all kind of just like counterculture stuff. Really, that same like Woodstock type vibe from back in the hippie days, just like the modern version of it. So Aubrey Marcus, and for people who don't know, he's Rogan's partner who runs On It. He has a great podcast called the Aubrey Marcus Podcast. I listen to that one a lot. He's heavy into like the ayahuasca, all that stuff, all like getting benefit out of all these weird ceremonial drugs, all the way down to the normal stuff like the acid and mushrooms. He's kind of like the guru, and he's where a lot of Rogan's info comes from about that stuff. So that's why it's interesting to me. You get the first-hand knowledge from Aubrey. You get Joe's interpretation of it on his podcast. So it's all interesting, but he did it last year too. So as soon as I saw it pop up, I was psyched to listen to it. He did like a Burning Man review after he went this last year, and I was interested in the past. Like, it sounds like a pretty ridiculous festival to go to. So like I said, it's a lot more than just like a music festival. They have all these crazy art installations. The culmination of it is the actual Burning Man, how it started. They build these gigantic weird art pieces, the centerpiece being a giant man at the end of the festival. Like, I think it's 3 or 4 days they burn that motherfucker, and I think most people are familiar. I won't waste too much time on what exactly the festival is. You Google it, there's tons of videos out if anyone's curious. After this one, it really, just from what he said, it seemed like the whole movement was kind of losing its soul. Like, and he actually did 2 podcasts where he talked about this, and it said before where it was all about people like coming together and whatever, getting whatever they might have wanted to get out of a festival like that, and having a transformative experience with whether it involves drugs or not, whatever people were going there for. It seems like it's grown to the point where instead of everyone coming together, it's more like splitting into different groups. And because it's so massive now, like they basically build a city every year in the Nevada desert, a little like temporary city.
Yeah.
Now, like
sounds like Sturgis.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
if people
want
to
getting so big, but now it's breaking up into groups. Like, oh, if you're at that camp over there, like these people might be jealous because you have that it costs more to get into that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or just some bullshit like that. Or there's, like he said at the ceremony, that the whole thing started around burning this giant sculpture or whatever the fuck it is. People were getting all pissed off. Like, some people were standing up in the front because they wanted to stand for whatever reason, and so the people in the back couldn't sit, and they start throwing shit at them, and just stuff that shouldn't normally happen at a festival like this. And what I mean by stuff that one of the things he brought up that was still a positive, and this is a perfect example of I think how something like that, what's special about it. He said any normal festival you go to, the whole place is going to be trash. There's going to be water bottles down there, fucking roaches, cigarette butts, beer bottles, everywhere. That's just, you get a bunch of people partying, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
At Burning Man, even with the crazy numbers there, I think they might even be getting into the hundreds of thousands, but I'd have to check on that. It's a giant festival. He said no trash. Even if there's a trash anywhere, someone will just pick it up, bag it up, get it out of the way. It's just like that. What they're trying to do is bring that, like, community-oriented feel to the whole thing. You know what I mean? Make it a positive overall experience. So there's still some of that for sure, but from what he said, and like I said, Aubrey Marcus podcast did 2 interviews about Burning Man. He said it's kind of losing that. And I think that's just a scale thing. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of smaller festivals. Like, we have some around here in New England. There's damn sure some in Colorado. There's got to be.
Oh, yeah, no, there's a shit ton of them. Actually, Jared, I think the guy that we'll have on the podcast as a guest, fucking probably the first one. He'd be a prime example.
He's way more experienced than either of us in the whole festival
going
world. It might be good to have him break that shit down for us. That would be interesting.
He'd be a good one too, because we'd be very open with him and stuff. I think he would be a perfect first candidate for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he just got done doing a festival. I forget what it is. It was something right close to Denver. I forget which one it is, but he just got back from one a couple weeks ago.
Because I feel like the same thing happened with all those hippie festivals, just like I was saying with the music for, like, after Woodstock, they tried to recreate that a couple times, and it went bad. Like, it went real bad. One of the most notable ones was the Altamont Festival in California, where the Hells Angels beat the fuck out of all these hippies and shit. Like, it just, someone got, the video's actually out, this is why it's so famous. So at that festival, this guy, so what they did was hire Hells Angels as security. Probably not the greatest idea.
No.
They also had
doesn't sound it.
Parked, and this probably was the bikers themselves, parked all their bikes in front of the stage as kind of like a barrier. Well, we all know what happens at concerts. The crowd pushes forward. Everything's always jammed up against the stage. People started getting too close to the bikes. They started getting annoyed and beating the shit out of them for fucking with their motorcycles.
What the fuck?
There's a video, and you can YouTube this. This guy, he was probably just a crazy guy. Maybe he was on some shit. Who knows? Pulled out a gun, like right in front of the stage. Who knows if he was going to shoot someone, what he was going to do. This Hell's Angel comes out of nowhere and stabs the fuck out of him. Which, honestly, is...
Like, just ends it rather than, like...
Yeah, and the guy died. The guy was also black, so there was a ratio. Either way, at a big hippie festival, like a Woodstock equivalent, you don't want people getting stabbed, and that's the farthest thing they want. So,
like, what the fuck?
Who knows... From my perspective, seeing the video, this crazy fuck was probably going to shoot someone. They should actually most likely be thanking the guy, even though he was a Hell's Angel, so he didn't, like, normal security would have tackled him and, like, held him down, and he fucking stabbed him a bunch. So, went a little too far there. But all I'm saying is when you get a real homegrown movement, like, and the best example we have in America of a movement is all that hippie shit around Woodstock that went on back then. It seems like it runs its course, and it's just not scalable at a certain point. Like, that whole hippie movement, I wasn't alive back then. Sounds like there's probably some good stuff that came out of it, but damn sure wasn't going to take over the country, and everyone was going to be all fucking peace and love, and
it
just wasn't going to work like that. So there's still a lot of, like, leftover stuff from that. You have a lot of people who were fully in that shit who ended up in Vermont, and I mean people like our parents' age now. That generation who were part of that Woodstock hippie shit, maybe even a little older than them. But it clearly, like, the core of that movement is not around anymore. It didn't last. You know what I mean? So I think you're seeing that with something like Burning Man now. It was a really positive, great thing that came out, but and I'm hearing the secondhand from that.
Everything's got to have an ending, man. Yeah, everything. I mean, it can only go so far.
Well, unless you get one that really takes a hold and keeps going, and that I don't think is going to be damn sure not some hippie shit from the 70s. Definitely not Burning Man. Again, cool as shit. Something about like we kind of pointed out a flaw right from the beginning. It sounds like a great festival. Probably don't have it in the Nevada desert.
Yeah, exactly.
Find somewhere better. we already went over the movement that we both want to take hold, and that's the Rogan movement.
For
so
sure.
Hopefully that's what
Let the Rogan
really
movement take over.
pushes human consciousness forward, because all this stuff does, like, it's all part of this overall cultural development, all the stuff we've been talking about, but hopefully Rogan is a bigger part of that in the future. We'll see. But
I think he will be, man. He is a hell of an
he's already a part of it. How big is, that's what I said, that's why I'm excited.
I mean, I see it only getting bigger. I see it only reaching further.
The only way he's getting shut down is if we have someone way crazier than the current president, like we go full China, where like the internet's all locked down. And
yeah,
he's saying
that's
no
like
more.
Isn't that just like North Korea? Like China locks their internet down too.
Yeah, China is heavily. North Korea is like the extreme example, but the only reason North Korea does their shit is because they're so small. China is a much better example, and because they're gigantic, way bigger than the U.S. They also have like heavily censored internet. Like you can only Google certain things, but obviously like there's people who know how to hack it and get around it. So it's just like here, if you hack some shit, unless you're doing like serious bank fraud or something, it's really not a big deal. Yeah. Or like unless you hack the CIA or like Hillary Clinton's emails or something. In China, you hack some little shit, they're gonna lock you up, throw away the key, and say fuck you. Like they're pretty harsh in the cyber realm like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that's happening with America. We'll see. I think if anything, we're going to like a more open-minded society rather than a more closed, lockdown one. But you never know with that kind of stuff.
I know that's probably. I was gonna say I wanted to get on a little bit of that, but that's probably a whole nother podcast because I've been hearing some shit. I'm hoping it goes into that more of like a neutral area, because right now with this one side wanting to be stronger than the other shit is just fucking crap.
Well,
it's just so much bullshit.
We're getting to the end of this one, man. Let's wrap up on this. If the whatever we want to classify the way of thinking behind this the whole podcast in general, but especially Joe Rogan Experience and podcasts like that, all the ones that follow under that, the Aubrey Marcus podcast, our podcast, man, everything that has kind of followed that movement is pushing us away from this red versus blue team.
That's true.
It's just foolish. So if it does take off, we will probably see the end of that in our lifetimes, and I hope it goes that way.
I hope so, man.
But either way, it's interesting to see.
That's for sure.
I think the ball's rolling, man. I don't think you can stop it at this point, but it's still, just being real about it, it has a long way to go, man. We're still very far from that kind of like real open-mindedness that we're talking about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are more and more people thinking like that.
I think through this whole podcast, I mean, just to like wrap it all up, a full circle effect here, I think like one of our main things, like we were talking about in the beginning, just bettering our podcast as we go, just always striving to get better, talking about like MJ and like Arnold and stuff, and like how they strive to be better and where MJ's at. I think one of the biggest things here that we talked about through this whole thing, even all the way up to the last thing we just said, is to better yourself. Like a good question to yourself is, do you always strive to be better than the day before? You know what I mean? Like tomorrow, do you want to be better tomorrow, or do you want to be better from a week from now? Do you think of yourself as being better? You know what I mean? Like I think that a lot of people don't have that in their mindset. That
what it's called, man. There's a lot of different names for this. But a perfect way to sum up what you're saying right here, it's having a growth mindset.
Growth mindset, I like that.
I read that in another book before. Having a growth mindset, and as I mentioned before, the title of the one I'm reading right now, from Michael Jordan's trainer, it's called Relentless.
Relentless. There you go. Yeah.
That sums it up as best as it could be summed up right there. Be fucking relentless in whatever you want to do. Like find your lane and ride that motherfucker out as far as you can take it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. I think on that we'll wrap up the 50th episode here.
Not too bad.
And we'll be back next week. At least one a week coming here. anyone who wants to hit us up is Green Mountain Views on Instagram, gmv802@gmail.com for any low-key shit you want to hit us up with.
Yeah, throw some comments, too. If you enjoy the podcast at all, it always helps. Just give some comments, whether it's good or bad. We enjoy it, whatever it is, so throw some comments.
Yeah, anyone out there listening to this, we really appreciate that. Yeah, and any feedback would be helpful, always. So on that, have a great week, people. We will see you next Sunday, or hear you. Listen. We'll be back next week.
Peace.